Benjamin de Loenen. I'm the founder and director of the ICERS Foundation, and for many months we and many people have been living on to this moment. It's been an amazing process to see how the idea of bringing all of you together here has been materializing, and finally it's happening, and all of you are here. And so in the course of the months, a lot of people have started to join this effort, and I'm sitting here in front of an audience with people from over 55 countries. So it's really a sign that ayahuasca is not anymore like a marginal or a minority issue, but it's really a globalized phenomenon. And when I say globalized phenomena, it's not just ayahuasca, but it's really a whole plant family, plants that in indigenous societies have played a very important role for the survival and the well-being of the group and the individual. And if, in a globalized world, they've spread into different uses. The other very interesting thing is that we managed to get the auspices of UNESCO, the UN Education, Science and Culture Organization. I think it's the first time that they auspice an event about something that delicate, sensitive than psychoactive plants like ayahuasca. And I hope that it's a body that goes also over the recognition of world heritage of certain practices. So we hope that out of this, our dialogue with them, we can work towards recognizing ayahuasca practices as world heritage as well. Unfortunately, since 2010, the INCB, the International Narcotics Control Board of the UN, has started to create social alarm about these plants. And in 2012, they even took it further. They invited governments to criminalize these plants where needed, so leaving it very open. And since 2010, more or less, or the end of 2009, a lot of arrests have started happening. In Spain alone, there's been about 40 arrests for ayahuasca importations, 40 since maybe 3 years. So really, it's a bit of a conflict, a legal conflict going on around ayahuasca. And while cannabis, for example, is now slowly being decriminalized, ayahuasca is being criminalized. So that was one of the reasons why we organized this conference. The other thing is also that it's starting to appear more in reports about emerging drugs in the same category as the new research chemicals or the legal highs, which there's no research about, and ayahuasca is being put in that same category. We have people here from different organizations as well. We have representatives of the authorities. Leon de Souza from the Senate from Brazil is here with us. Unfortunately, the representative of Ecuador from Concept couldn't be here, so I apologize in his name. And we have organizations, that are specialized in drug policy, also here, like DPA, Drug Policy Alliance, with people coming from Transnational Institute, Open Society Foundations, Beckley Foundation, MAPS. So there's a lot of organizations that we hope that will bend around this subject of ayahuasca in the context of international drug policy as it being decriminalized, or is it being criminalized. In terms of safety and ethics is another thing that has been taking place. Is ayahuasca use is quite relatively new in the globalized world. It's expanding rapidly. There's also problems with unethical practices with safety. So also this conference was an important reason to go over this subject and try to create initiatives to deal with that. So we, for example, rewrote the Hippocratic Oath that's in your bags that we would like to have your feedback on. The Ethnobotanical Stewardship Council has developed a health guide. So there's initiatives that we have developed to try to also address that. And then the other big challenge is sustainability. There's more and more use. People will maybe there will be a problem with the natural resources. So that's another big subject of this conference. But of all this is also meant for cultural interchange, for dialogue between all the different people from all different backgrounds that are here. So I want to invite all of you to really participate. Do your thing and participate actively. That's the idea of this conference. Also the programs arrived. We had a problem, as you probably saw in the mail. So we finally have the programs here. So. The accreditations went a little bit low, went a little bit slow. But for the rest, I think everything's more or less under control. This would never have been possible without the support of our sponsors. We have Beckley and River Styx as main sponsors, and then we have several NGOs. We have the Ethnobotanical Stewardship Council, the Drug Policy Alliance, MAPS, the Plantaforma, Fundación José María Ferrigla, Open Foundation, NIRICA, and My Ethnobotanicals. That supported this, and also without the scientific committee, advisory committee, this would not have been possible to select all of the abstracts. So thank you so much to everybody, to making this happen. This is really a privilege to have all of you here. I'm going to now pass the word to Bia. One more practical thing. I'm sorry, I first want to introduce somebody, a very special person who lives here on the island, Richard Wolfe, to speak just a moment. He has contributed a lot to ayahuasca in the past. He lives here on the island, so I just want to pass during a few minutes words to welcome people here as well.
I connected with ayahuasca in a kind of an accidental way in about, I think it was about 1957 or so. I decided to go down to explore Brazil a little bit. And I got down there and discovered that one of the important components was a thing called the Santo Daime Church. It was a kind of an interesting church, and I connected with one of its leaders and then spent some time and actually went through the church. And one of the things that they did do was to make ayahuasca. And so I sat in and learned what this strange material was, and enjoyed both learning how they manufactured it, how they made it, and how they used it among the rather large group of church members that lived in Brazil, and also were scattered to some degree around the world. So that was my first exposure to ayahuasca in Brazil many years ago, and so it's been sort of an interesting experience over time, and having made a good bit of ayahuasca myself in various ways, and a number of years ago I was also looking for a place to come to that had a nice ocean connection, and a friend of mine asked me to come to this strange little island called Ibiza and come over and spend a week here, which I did. And that was a startling experience to discover what this island was about. This was about, I would say, 20 years ago, roughly. And decided to buy a place, and did so quite near the beach as compared with the place where we visited last evening. So I've had a summer place here in Ibiza for 20 odd years, and it's been a wonderful experience to meet the people here on the island, in the area, and to see them and to get the wide perspective from the people who live here on this island. And by live, I mean they either live here really full-time or they come and visit, as I do. And so that's been an interesting exposure to the opening of many substances, plants, and things of this sort that occur. And of course, ayahuasca is one of the substances to that is indigenous more or less here, and I discovered it, so on. So I'm delighted to be here with all of you today, and it will be interesting to hear the wonderful people that we've got involved here in this conference and learn as much as we can about this substance and its relatives. So thank you very much. I look forward to participating with all of you as well. Thank you.
I'm very happy to be here today. This has been a huge process. Welcome, everybody. I am here representing the Advisory Scientific Committee of the 2014 World Ayahuasca Conference. We were a group of 4. Myself, a Brazilian anthropologist who currently resides in Mexico, and 3 members of ICERS. I would like to ask if Rafael, Jordi, and Jose Carlos are in the audience. They're not, okay. Can you just stand so they can see who you are? Clap of hands. So Jordi Hiba, pharmacologist from Spain, Jose Carlos Bozo, a Spanish psychologist with a PhD in pharmacology, and Rafael Guimarães dos Santos, a Brazilian biologist who did his PhD in pharmacology. I consider this to be an historical moment. This is for sure the largest, most diverse, and complete conference on ayahuasca in world history. This conference is the climax of a series of international gatherings that have been organized about ayahuasca since the early 90s, such as the UDV Ayahuasca Conference in Rio de Janeiro in 1995, the first Cura in 1997 in Campinas, the Ayahuasca Conference in 2000 in San Francisco, Psychoactivity in Amsterdam in 2002, Las Jornadas de Ayahuasca in Spain in 2002, the globalization of ayahuasca in Heidelberg in 2008, and the ayahuasca track in the Psychedelic Science Conference in 2013 in Oakland, among others. This conference is not strictly academic. Its goal is to contemplate a diversity of perspectives and discourses, such as social sciences, biomedicine, and native knowledge. The presenters include scientists, academics, shamans, religious leaders, therapists, facilitators, legal experts, government authorities, environmentalists, practitioners, psychonauts, enthusiasts, artists, writers, mothers, movie makers. The conference is structured so that on the one side there is the primary track composed of a series of roundtables or panels. The emphasis here is on a collective dialogue and interchange of ideas with a more dynamic and fluid structure. On the other side, there is the thematic or specialized track, a result of our public call for abstracts. This is divided into 3 levels. 1, an academic forum that is composed of social sciences, phenomenology, psychology and public health, and biomedicine. The second track is the legal track, the legal forum, and a community forum is the third one. Here, the presentations are individual and more formal. Apart from this, there's a series of parallel activities, such as the Ayahuasca Film Forum, launches of books, artwork, performances, and presentations of projects and institutions in the field. All venues are equally important. There is no hierarchy between them. The presenters include pioneers in this field, names such as Antônio Escoltado, Claudio Naranjo, and Jonathan Ott, and a whole new generation of young and energetic folks. Following the call of abstracts, more than 100 abstracts were received. This was truly amazing. In other words, it was a huge success and reveals a real boom in the field, both in terms of the geography, with proposals coming from many unexpected countries, and in terms of disciplines and perspectives included. The experience of selecting these presentations was challenging. We have created several different methods and approaches, reorganized according to our own criteria, and had many back and forth discussions. We got stressed, but we also felt joy. During this process, it became clear to us that this conference captured the spirit of our times. It represents an opportunity for many people to come out of their hiding place and tell their story, present their hypotheses, meet their peers, speak their truth. We apologize to the people we had to exclude. Many of them were legitimate proposals. We ask for their comprehension and hope that a future conference will be even more inclusive. One important aspect of this conference is its focus on native knowledge. We have invited representatives from different indigenous and mestizo communities, hoping that their voice will be heard. They are not our object of study. They can speak for themselves and engage in a dialogue with academics in a broad, multicultural, and interdisciplinary gathering. We have also created a special place of speech in the community forum for representatives of urban, contemporary, non-native ayahuasca traditions, in tune with our view that these are also legitimate cultural manifestations. We believe in the diversity of this movement and are open to its multiple branches and variations. We have tried to bridge the gap between the English and Spanish-speaking world, and we have simultaneous translations. Many things could be said about the content of this conference, and it is hard to choose what to comment now. But for sure, we cannot leave out the importance of the pioneering studies of Dr. Jordi Hiba and his team in the global and Spanish context. These studies, which are more than 15 years old, are remarkable for their novelty and their methodological rigor. They are among the most important studies in human pharmacology of ayahuasca, using double-blind, placebo-controlled designs performed in a clinic context and with an increased representative number of participants. They include long-term consumers and neuroimaging. If the studies had not been conducted here in Spain, the conference would probably not be held here. Likewise, it is important to point out the clinical studies about antidepressant and anxiolytic effects of ayahuasca that are being conducted in the University of São Paulo, USP, in Ribeirão Preto, Brazil, by Dr. Jaime Halak and his team, and also similar studies led by Dr. Draulio Araújo and his team in the Federal University of Rio Grande do Norte, Natal, Brazil. These studies are important because they are the first ones conducted with patients in a clinical context. They are also using neuroimaging. Paulo Barbosa, on the other hand, will present the first results of his neuroimaging study with the long-term users in the Brazilian ayahuasca religion of União do Vegetal, UDV. The area of health-related studies is definitely one of great vigor and interest. The various virtues of ayahuasca are explored, from its potential in the treatment of diseases and ailments, such as depression, problematic drug use, and mental health problems, to its potential for improving psychological well-being and helping people cope with death. On the social science front, there is also a process of flourishing. I'd like to point out the launching of our book, co-edited by Clancy Kavanagh and me, Ayahuasca Shamanism in the Amazon and Beyond, published through the prestigious Oxford University Press. We try to present a balanced view on the phenomenon of the spread of Amazonian shamanism throughout the world that combines both a critical and tolerant perspective towards this expansion. The Legal and Human Rights Forum is another great contribution of this conference. Here I would like to ask if there is anybody in the public that has been, had legal problems with ayahuasca. If you can raise your hand. Yeah, so perhaps few hands, but however, very important stories that is very worrisome for all of us. Spain has given rise to the Ayahuasca Platform, an initiative that unites different users from around the country to establish a common alliance and code of ethics. Perhaps it is not a coincidence that this country now also sees the birth of ICR's legal efforts. The main goals of these efforts are: 1, the establishment of an international committee of experts, and B, the development of a global strategy for the normalization of ayahuasca. We hope to hear more about this important initiative in the future. We did not try to avoid the challenge of addressing hard and controversial topics. Presentations delve into exploring the several challenges of expansion, such as legality, ethics, sustainability, security, gender imbalance, religious dogmatism, and health-related risks. Arts, music, movies, and poetry are also on board. The sensible and human documentary of Ben Loenen about the Chilean case will be presented for the first time. Come check it out. Perhaps one of the greatest achievements of this conference is to place ayahuasca within the larger context of international drug policy. The presence of all of you here today, and of government representatives, and renowned institutions and NGOs on the drug policy and drug research field shows us that ayahuasca is no longer an obscure beverage used by a minority group somewhere in the remote Amazon, but a central matter in contemporary drug policy, public health, and human rights debate. The expansion of ayahuasca spirituality into Western world provides us with many provocative thoughts. Such expansion should be understood within the diaspora movement of the global southern religions towards the north, and reflects the increasingly relevant role of Latin America in the global religious scenario. Moving from the periphery towards the economical and political centers, this trend is significantly different from the historical process of Europeanization of Latin American religions. Unlike the colonial situation, this process does not involve political imposition or forced religious conversion. The internationalization of these practices illustrates the religious ambivalences and controversies of our times, stimulate key discussions, and thereby stimulates discussion of key issues regarding modernity itself. This is especially interesting if we take into account that the number of psychoactive substances, especially the so-called hallucinogens, is in fact much larger in the American continent than in the rest of the world, as noted by Richard Ivan Schultes and Albert Hoffman in their classic book, Plants of the Gods. Perhaps the expansion of ayahuasca is the actualization of an ongoing cultural exchange, where substances like tobacco, coca, guaraná, and yerba mate spread beyond their American orange into the rest of the world. Coming back to our conference, the support of UNESCO for this initiative shows us that ayahuasca can be understood and recognized as part of an Amazonian identity, and as well as an effervescent international cultural phenomenon. The use of this brew cannot be reduced to mere drug consumption, but should be understood within a larger historical and social-cultural context, and perhaps also as a collective heritage of humankind. We hope this conference is both enlightening and fun. May we be able to properly honor these beautiful traditions and continue to explore what the people in the Amazon called a ciência da natureza, the science of nature. Thank you. I would like to pass the word to